It was at that moment that I understood what she was teaching me. I realized that she was teaching the relationship between technique and style. For example, now let's put the question another way. If you listen to, let's say, a measure of Rachmaninoff and then a measure of Bach, you know which is which, you know immediately. And the question is, well, why do you know that? They both are following basically the same rules of harmonic, of voice leading for the. But what happens is that you have in the course of your listening, you have taught yourself, you've recognized that Rachmaninoff will always solve a certain problem in a certain way. You may not say that to yourself, but your ear will tell you that. And then Bach will do it in his way. And you say, oh, that sounds like Bach, or that sounds like Rachmaninoff, or that sounds like Stravinsky. And what you're hearing is, let's put it this way, you're hearing the predilection of the composer to resolve a technical problem in a highly personal way. So, in other words, now let's...
And from that point, how hard is it to design your own personal way to solve it?
This is the point. The point is, and this is the other thing which she didn't say in words that day, but which I understood totally, was that in order to arrive at a personal style, you have to have a technique to begin with. In other words, when I say that style is a special case of technique, you have to have the technique. You have to have a place to make the choices from.
Yeah.
If you don't have a basis on which to make the choice, then you don't have a style at all. You have a series of accidents.
Looking at your career from the outside, one of the things that's striking is the number of different collaborators you've worked with. And I wonder if part of the reason why you do that is because you had this seminal experience of confronting somebody else's work. That's
exactly what happens when you find yourself in a place of total ignorance of that kind. And that's a place where you can begin again. You can begin learning again. You know, the difficulty with it's not just artists or musicians, but with anybody in any ordinary part of life or walk of life, the difficulty we have is how do we continue to learn? I mean, everybody has this problem because you get what we call our training and education at a certain point, and we spend the rest of our life changing gears in the same way. And the biggest, this is particularly true of composers, they pick up a style or a way of working in a certain way, but the real issue, I've always said to younger composers, it's not how do you find your voice, but how to get rid of it. Getting the voice isn't hard, it's getting rid of the damn thing. Because once you've got the voice, then you're kind of stuck with it.
You've said to Terry Gross, in fact, she's asked you, do you ever try to compose so it doesn't sound like Philip Glass?
I do it all the time, and I fail all the time. I learn that the only hope of shaking free of your own description of music was to place yourself in such an untenable position that you had to figure out something new. That happened with Ravi Shankar in 1964, and I repeated that experience. I do it whenever I can. And that means constantly finding new people to work with.